Bethesda has been languishing in the gutter for about a decade now, just releasing games that aren't resonating. Fallout, which has become more popular than ever, is not even being utilized effectively at all these days. And now Microsoft is stepping in and Bethesda is not happy, but there's one thing that's certain now: Bethesda has lost control of Fallout. But why? As Windows Central put it here, Microsoft has confirmed themselves that Obsidian is now making a new Fallout game. We have no idea the setting or city they're going to focus on, but despite this, it's officially happening. This news comes weirdly right after Microsoft has already confirmed that 25% of Obsidian has been laid off effective immediately, following both of their last AAA efforts, Avowed and The Outer Worlds 2, which flopped horribly. I mean, Avowed was apparently getting a sequel game somehow. Some reports are saying that sequel is cancelled, others say it's on ice. No one really knows at this point. Either way though, Avowed was meant to be Obsidian's Elder Scrolls, and well, it didn't really work. But on the flip side, you had The Outer Worlds 2, which was meant to be Obsidian's Fallout series after Bethesda bought the rights and kept those rights close to their chest for a really long time. Ever since Bethesda bought the Fallout IP, they've never let really anyone else touch it or do anything with it, outside of maybe collabs with, say, Call of Duty or something. Obviously, the only other company who's made a real Fallout game once Bethesda bought it was Obsidian, right? New Vegas is beloved. We already know this. It was also infamously made in a year and a half, which is ridiculous by AAA standards. So the news today that Bethesda has effectively lost control of Fallout via Microsoft, it tells me that things are indeed changing, but it doesn't necessarily mean for the better, since what exists right now is nothing close to what it really used to be. As Polygon puts it here, Microsoft is going full Marvel with Halo and Fallout. What does that even mean? Well, Asha Sharma, the head of Xbox, told the world via her memo to the employees out there that not only will there be layoffs, which there were, and it was bloody to say the least, but the other core part of Asha's memo was simple: Microsoft would be focusing entirely on their core franchises and force their studios that they do own to continue working on the games they know will have the highest return on investment possible. This means Microsoft doesn't want some weird indie game or slop that nobody plays like The Outer Worlds 2. All Microsoft cares about now is what actually matters to players: Halo, Gears, Fable, Forza, Elder Scrolls, and stuff like Fallout. The heavy hitters, right? The things you actually want to see more of. It is risk-averse, I mean it is, but in Microsoft's case, they've already lost so much money and relevance over the years due to moronic decisions. This kind of needed to happen sooner than later. Under Phil Spencer, things were managed so poorly, nothing was clearly getting done. I mean, think about it. The last true Fallout game was in what, 2015 with Fallout 4? Fallout 76 is a live service game, and in Fallout 76's case, that game launched not only as a bug-ridden mess, which it did, Bethesda then spent years going back to repopulate that game's world because it had no humans in it for some reason, and then they brought in actual human NPCs via an update, because all the game had were like robots in the game originally that you could only talk to. I mean, Fallout 76 was a mess of a release. It has a terrible Metacritic score, and what if 76 did to any other IP that wasn't as strong as Fallout? I mean, come on, it would have ruined that franchise for good. In Fallout's case though, people still want more of that franchise. I mean, who can blame them? I mean, why isn't even Fallout 3 remastered yet? Why not remaster New Vegas even while we're at it? Hello, what are we doing? The fact that it's been 10 or 11 years or something since the last true single-player Fallout game is beyond stupid. I mean, the same thing goes with Elder Scrolls even too, right? Bethesda has decided to instead turn their franchises into these live service versions over making them single player. And while I'm sure those games have their audiences, and I'm not saying they shouldn't exist, the reality is that everyone still wants a new single player Elder Scrolls and Fallout. And yet when you look at the trajectory of Bethesda, all they've done is squandered their potential for years. How else am I supposed to say it? I mean, look at the Oblivion remaster that happened, right? That game blew up in sales numbers and sold millions of copies because of how absolutely starved the Elder Scrolls community was getting at that point. They wanted a new game in that series that the sight of a remaster was enough for them to devour it down to the bone. With Fallout, it's even worse. We haven't had an actual new single-player game in forever, right? Stupidly, when the Amazon Prime show dropped, Bethesda didn't have a new Fallout game to release alongside it, which was a massive missed opportunity because Microsoft would have made gangbusters if they had a Fallout game releasing around the time of the new show. Go figure. But since Bethesda was in charge of Fallout, nothing was happening because Bethesda barely releases new games anymore. Their last mainline release was Starfield, and suspiciously nowhere in Asha Sharma nor Bethesda's statements following these layoffs is Starfield even mentioned as a core pillar pillar of what Bethesda is going to be doing going forward, which makes sense to me because Starfield was bad. Sorry, I played it, I got sent a free key, and I still thought the game was massively disappointing. The game doesn't run well, it looks bad half the time, and the writing and characters are not good. But this is why when people saw that Fallout was being handed to Obsidian in order to make a new game, sure, people celebrated, but me, I was skeptical and cynical like usual. Because in my opinion, you're only as good as the last thing you did most of the time. Sure, Bethesda made Skyrim and Fallout 3, but that was well over a decade ago and then some. You have to look at Bethesda for who they are now, which is Fallout 76, Starfield, and Elder Scrolls Online. IGN even put the future of Bethesda rather dark, I gotta admit, as you can see here. They said the Xbox layoffs will negatively affect Elder Scrolls 6 and Bethesda, which will lead to further delays, crunch, and contractors taking over these games from the OGs that made them. IGN spoke to anonymous Bethesda devs as seen here who confirmed that key talent at Bethesda was let go who were making Skyrim's successor. This is yet another massive blow to Western gaming institutional knowledge for like the millionth time now. The people who know how to make these games are being let go, and the people left are either just as good or aren't, I guess. It's hard to say right now, since Bethesda takes literal decades to make a single game now, and that's being optimistic half the time. Wildly, one of the changes Microsoft already pushed on Bethesda, as seen here via Twitter, is they forced Bethesda to get rid of their in memoriam display of Bethesda devs who have passed away. So that's gone, which was weird. I can already envision some out-of-touch Microsoft higher-up going to Bethesda's office, seeing that display and going, "Why are you showing this? You know what this place needs. More contractors to work." You had one anonymous dev at Bethesda who told IGN this: their loss will have a substantial and cascading effect on the game and morale of the studio. It's been a mix of every discipline, programmers, artists, and designers. One person who's been at the company since Morrowind was cut. Yeah, they're gutting institutional knowledge is what it looks like, and replacing it with contractors overseas instead who've never made Bethesda games before, but it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? On one hand, sure, the people getting gutted knew what they were doing, but under Todd Howard's guidance, Fallout especially has been underutilized unlike anything in Microsoft's kit right now. Again, it's been 11 years since Fallout 4 came out. We should have been 2 more Fallout mainline games in at least by now. But ever since Microsoft started buying up companies, there's been another interesting effect, which is also, I'm just going to say it, stagnation. All of these companies were making games on a timely manner before, Bethesda, Obsidian, you name it. Once they got bought out, a lot of those studios stopped releasing games regularly. Bethesda's output is like screeched to a halt. Bethesda's former vice president, even Pete Hines, he spoke out against how Microsoft was running Bethesda into the ground, as seen here from PC Gamer earlier this year. He flat out said he couldn't wait to leave after seeing the beloved studio get gutted and damaged, and then some, while being powerless to stop any of it. Pete Hines spoke to Fireside Chat Gaming about why he left Bethesda. Here's what he said: "I was staying there because this place still needs me. I just hit a point of, yes, it needs me, and I am powerless to do what I think needs to be done to run this place properly to protect these people, to maintain what we worked so hard to create, which is an incredibly efficient, well-run video game developer and publisher." He's right, because that's what Bethesda used to be, before Xbox bought them anyways. But Pete said more: "And when I was unable to do what I thought my job should involve in continuing to have that place be, you know, if not the most efficient publisher in the game industry, it was way the F up there, and when I couldn't protect it, and I saw how it was getting damaged and broken apart and frankly mistreated, abused, whatever word you want to use, and rhyme by the way, I said I am not going to sit here and watch this happen right in front of me, because that's exactly what happened, right? Bethesda's been mismanaged, that can't be denied, because during this massive layoff, as IGN reported here, some of the things removed during the bloodbath was actually a ton of middle management. You see, it turns out Xbox's studio, not just Bethesda, but really all of them, they had a lot of managers managing not just people, but other layers of management. It sounded stupid, I know, but it's actually true. Basically, you would have Asha Sharma, or I guess Phil Spencer at the time, at the very top, right, of the pyramid, who would have his people who answered to him. That also had people beneath them who answered to them, who also had other managers who would report to that layer. By the way, none of those layers make any games at all, they just manage. And this just kept going, and somehow beneath all these layers of useless management positions were people who actually made the video games. And I can only imagine how infuriating and slow it was to get something approved if it needed to move up multiple layers of useless people layer by layer who do nothing all day to really get it approved, right? It effectively means that these companies were just stuffed to the gills with a lot of people who had no business being there in the first place. Apparently, like I said, a lot of this middle management is gone now with the most recent layoffs. But this is likely what Pete Hines was talking about, why and how he left Bethesda, because this is not how an efficient studio makes games. You're wasting millions a year on people who sit in their offices doing nothing, who yell at those below them for reports, who will then just yell at the next layer beneath them for the same reports too to be made. It's pointless. But this is how Xbox was being ran, and when when you have this level of bloat and mismanagement, it's no wonder why you haven't gotten a real new Fallout or Elder Scrolls game in forever, because that would require actual work to be done, which may sound harsh to some to say, but who cares, man? It is what it is. Things get to a point where so much time has passed, it just becomes unreasonable. So is it really no wonder why Bethesda lost control of Fallout because of this? They weren't doing anything with it besides Fallout 76 with this IP, to anyone's knowledge anyways. Again, look, I asked Google how long it's been since Elder Scrolls 6 was announced, and look at that dude on screen. 8 whole years ago, they announced Elder Scrolls 6. It's not even projected to release for at least another 3 years, and that's being hopeful. No, okay? This can't continue. This is why Bethesda's losing control of their IPs, because as Pete Hines says, this is not how you run a game studio. Although, you did have one game director at Obsidian who was getting really mad at people online telling the games industry how to run things, as Eurogamer showed here. The game director goes off saying that people are telling places like Obsidian what it should be doing without knowing how it works internally. Ironically, though, the same game director admits, as you can see there, that Obsidian, in their own opinion, is not how it used to be when it made those hit games. But don't worry, guys, the DNA is supposedly still there, which I mean, I guess, but you kind of proved your detractors right by saying that. I mean, Obsidian, like Bethesda, is so obviously not in the same place that they used to be. That's not even being a hater. That's just looking at the patterns. Claiming that Obsidian is capable of creating another Knights of the Old Republic or even a new Vegas again, that sounds like a pipe dream to me. Because like I said earlier, you're only as good as the last thing you made. You can drone on and on about how you made this or that back in the day. The reality is what you make today in the here and now conveys where you are at both mentally and physically in this very moment. So yes, Obsidian has made hit games, right? Knights of the Old Republic 2, New Vegas, South Park, The Stick of Truth, all great games. But you are comparing an Obsidian, which also had people like Chris Avallone, who helped write and create New Vegas even, who has very publicly been against Obsidian's nonsense for years now, and hasn't worked there in years either, actively stating how poorly ran that place is. And I think what IGN said before that I showed, how contractors are now taking up the positions that are originally meant for these core development teams, that's a big reason too for why this is all going the way it is. These studios, they're losing what made them special, okay? Either out of their own free will to not make what works for them, or because they are being completely decimated via layoffs and losing that institutional knowledge on the way. Again, saying Obsidian could make Fallout or even an Elder Scrolls game, like that's one thing, and I'm not saying that they couldn't. In theory, anyone, if they had access to the IP rights, could make whatever it is that they wanted, right? The problem is that if what's being made is good or not. I mean, look at Avowed, right? That's Obsidian's most recent depiction of what they would have made if they had the Elder Scrolls IP. Because let's be real, that's pretty much what Avowed is. It's their Skyrim or Oblivion, but with their own ideas and characters. It's based on the Pillars of Eternity world, which they made. So using their version of Elder Scrolls, right? Pillars of Eternity, what happened? It scored decently, I guess, but a lot of fans rejected it. A lot of people didn't buy the game. And Avowed got rightfully lambasted because the writing was poor, the characters were not interesting, and the art was not good, let's just put it that way, and the world was static and not reactive like Obsidian's previous games were. Like, no one moves in the world of Avowed. If you ever played it, all the characters stand still. So objectively speaking, if Obsidian was given Elder Scrolls today, Avowed is what they would have made pretty much. And I can confidently say if Obsidian made Avowed but as Elder Scrolls, people would actually hate that game even more because it wouldn't live up to their expectations. Now let's look at the Outer Worlds 2, right? In case you don't know, this IP was actually spearheaded by Tim Kaine. That's the creator of Fallout and others at Obsidian originally. Tim Kaine's still at Obsidian too. And the idea with the Outer Worlds was to create Fallout in everything but name pretty much, but set it in space instead of the apocalypse of America. And the first Outer Worlds sold good. It was an alright game in my opinion, around 5 million copies sold, which for Obsidian at least, that's a hit. But like I said, you're only as good as the last thing you made. So looking at the Outer Worlds 2, what did we have? Multiple factions, all ran mostly by strong girl boss characters. The game literally begins with an effeminate, small, curly-haired man getting slapped by the Captain Marvel-looking captain of the ship to establish dominance, who's obviously a female because she has to be. And it becomes very clear very quickly that the Outer Worlds 2 was made with a forced feminist message in it. It was, right? The whole game, like many Western ones around these times. They're all kind of doing the same thing. Go look at even Horizon, for example, which is also conveniently full of women in leading roles and men barely leading anything unless they're villains. The point being is that the Outer Worlds 2, which many people rejected, it only sold about 1 million copies if less out of release during the winter season, by the way, on both PS5, Steam, and Xbox. It was just another Western agenda slop game that failed again, right? Even Kotaku, who hates YouTubers like me, has admitted, as you can see here, that both Avowed and Outer Worlds failed spectacularly. And by the way, they both released in what Xbox called the year of Obsidian, no less, which is, oh god, dude. So while I see people celebrating, oh wow, we're getting a new Fallout game, I would not hold my breath if it just ends up being what Avowed or the Outer Worlds 2 ended up being, but now it's set in an IP that people actually care about, which again, if it sucks, the backlash will be nuclear. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to have women that are overwhelmingly in a position of power in this new Fallout game. All the men will be evil or incompetent, and they will bang that ideology drum as hard as they can, which is why when I see people say Obsidian still has the DNA, I mean, I guess, but the results of that DNA making things hasn't been anything people want to support or play, which is again the problem. Naturally, since they're doing Fallout now, at the very least, the game will get a boost in sales on brand recognition alone. But it doesn't mean that I have much of any faith in Obsidian to still make a great game. I want to be wrong. I hope I am. But all I can do right now is realistically look at what this current DNA of Obsidian is capable of making. And what I see is not filling me with confidence. The fact that Bethesda lost the Fallout IP in this sense from their creative control to Obsidian, it does show at this point that these IPs are being placed from one damaged goods studio to the next. And Microsoft, unfortunately, has been notorious for not being able to cultivate the studios that they own anyways. Outside of Playground, which does Forza, most Xbox first-party studios are not making things that people care about, and they struggle to make them too. I wish it wasn't the case, but it is, right? Sure, a new Fallout game would be cool, but knowing that it's being made by the people who actively detest their player base and want them to play slop is not the win I think Microsoft thinks it's going to be. I'd much rather see literally anyone else make a Fallout game at this point. Since Microsoft is relying so heavily on contract work already, I would honestly love to see their IPs get freed from the clutches of the studios they unironically own too. If Microsoft wanted a true Fallout game that could have shaken the formula and be made with people who are talented and have consistently made great games, Microsoft would license out Fallout to say 4A Games, the makers of the Metro 2033 games, because they at least understand how to create a dire post-apocalypse world that actually feels harrowing. The problem with current day Bethesda and Obsidian is even when they operate within these worlds like Fallout, the games and the experiences that they are making, they feel, I don't know if it's just me, maybe let me know in the comments, but their versions of Fallout these days, and especially in the show and all that, they're very whimsical and almost theme park-like in design over what these worlds should instead be conveying. Fallout 76, for example, half the time looking at it, its trailers or its gameplay, it looks like a cartoony, happy, whimsical version of Fallout. Whereas if you went back to Fallout 3, for example, that felt more like a survival horror game with specks of brightness in its setting too, the way that it should be. Fallout to me is not running through the wasteland, listening to the radio while skipping with a smile on my face as colorful characters talk to me. Fallout to me is a dark and terrifying world where mutants reign and my decisions will shape the world around me and everyone's out to eat me. I don't think current Xbox studios could honestly do that. Again, 4A Games, the Metro 2033 guys, yeah, they could do that no problem. And by the way, if you haven't played the Metro games, dude, you should, especially if you're waiting for Fallout and you haven't played them, go play the Metro games. There's like 3 of them out right now. They're awesome. And you'll realize when playing those Metro games that those are effectively the new Fallout games in all but name right now because they actually feel dire. They tell good human stories and they have actual weight, and this is key, horror to what happens in those games too. Bethesda Fallout these days is like the game version of a Coca-Cola commercial with a celebratory smile with their thumbs up pretty much. It just doesn't feel the same anymore. I mean, again, the Fallout TV show proves this. It's not scary or dire at all. All the characters on that show are quirky Chungus millennial writing, where everybody is goofy, nobody takes anything seriously, and the world feels more like a parody of Fallout than what Fallout should really be. So if that's the direction that Xbox wants Fallout to go in, it honestly sounds lame to me. I mean, I stopped watching the second season. It was awful. I want that feeling again when I first played Fallout 3 again, right? Seeing those ghouls lurking in the shadows of an abandoned grocery store and running into these weird abominations and various other open vaults that time forgot. Oh my god, I remember the people that were like cannibals in that one part in Fallout 3, that one family. Like that to me, that's Fallout. The problem with current day Xbox is they kind of forgot why people care about their franchises in the first place. The vast majority of their games, again, besides Forza, which is at least still doing well and consistently coming out, has mostly lost their audiences completely otherwise. And what Xbox needs right now, as it's said in their memo as seen here, is they need to just reset everything, get rid of all the bloat, return to form. But I don't know if it'll be enough, because with the overhiring and generational knowledge that has been leaving over the years, what's left is a shadow of itself in every way pretty much. There's too many cooks in the kitchen, too many hands exchanging too often, and when Bethesda got layoffs, what happened? As PC Gamer showed here, Bethesda is currently actually boycotting and protesting against Xbox. A spokesperson for the protest said this: "The company wants us to accept this as a done deal and quietly disappear. We won't let that happen. Our next steps are to mobilize. We need every single member visible and unified." They're essentially fighting to get the laid off developers back, and the devs are protesting, by the way, on July 15th, which is actually the day this video comes out. So if you're watching this the day this video's out, well, Bethesda's officially, especially those who work on Elder Scrolls Online that got decimated, they're all boycotting right now. Around 60% of that entire workforce is gone via this layoff, and yeah, they want them back. So all the people who worked on the live service side of Bethesda that got removed, it's too early to know the effects, but either way, Bethesda is telling Xbox they will not go down quietly, I guess. I can't even speak, dude. But again, right, it's a mess. This is why Bethesda lost control. They're prioritizing the wrong projects, just like Obsidian has too. Never would I have thought that Bethesda of all studios would be losing control the way that they did. These are the people who made Skyrim and Fallout, right? Like, come on, man, what's happening? They're supposed to be the pioneers of Western gaming design. Frankly, I still don't think Skyrim has been surpassed in a lot of ways. It's still somewhat ahead of its time game design-wise too. But that's what keeps happening, and really with the rise of Game Pass, which definitely influenced how Bethesda made their games, they likely got too comfortable, too complacent, and thought they could skirt by doing the bare minimum. And look what's happened. How long till they also lose the exclusive rights to make like Elder Scrolls next? It wouldn't even be a surprise why Xbox studios aren't making their great games. Their bills are going to be paid either way, right? As Insider Gaming showed here, the Game Pass numbers haven't grown in years. The crazy part is how badly Game Pass has been performing compared to what Microsoft currently wants it at. As seen here in legal documents revealed, Xbox projected years ago that they would be at about 77 million Game Pass subscribers by 2026. They're currently sitting at just shy of 30 million, but how can that be? They bought these studios. Why aren't they just making the games they used to? It's because even Bethesda, like Obsidian and the rest, once they got absorbed into a bloated behemoth that was riddled with middle management and no incentives to deliver anything great in a reasonable time, it affected quality and everything else. If that wasn't true, then Elder Scrolls 6 would be out already. Instead, it will be well over 10 years and then some before we even see gameplay of the Elder Scrolls 6. Fathom that, dude. Bethesda used to release a new huge RPG every 3 or 4 years. Now they can't even get it done in 10 plus. This is why what's happening to them is happening and why nothing is growing the way that they wanted it to, as Polygon puts it here. Bethesda has become complacent and capable of only making one kind of game over and over. Even Starfield is just Fallout in space, but worse. But that's what Bethesda makes, right? Effectively the same game, and just hoping that nobody notices. I think the way Polygon put this one part is kind of perfect, actually, which is weird for gaming journalism, but credit where it's due. But let me read this part for you. The future for these franchises was dim even before Asher Sharma's Xbox reset, forcing developers to crank out more games and presumably faster almost guarantees. They'll go the way of the Marvel film universe, creatively lacking with shortened gaps between releases, only highlighting how similar each project is from its predecessor. A smart plan would arrange production teams and release schedules so there's plenty of time for different studios to work on different versions or visions for each franchise, giving them new life and setting the stage for a brighter future. But Xbox leadership has repeatedly proven resistance to planning beyond the present, and its current recklessness and lack of foresight don't suggest a break from that habit. Careful there, Polygon. You might get that Obsidian game director guy really mad if you try to say anything about how things will be run, but yeah, pretty much. At this point, hearing any Xbox studio not named Playground is making something Xbox related fills me with dread most of the time, because it usually means I'm gonna get a buggy, unfinished game, and if it does run, it's usually a humiliation ritual in Obsidian's case. Although Microsoft admitting that Bethesda can't make people wait forever when it comes to Fallout tells me one thing for sure, at least, that it's easily one of the biggest admissions of failure that the Xbox leadership couldn't get what was once arguably the best Western game developer pretty much at its time to just make games like they used to once they finally bought them. And remember, Bethesda games didn't just simply sell well either. They defined the generations. They were like synonymous with massive RPGs that players would disappear into for hundreds of hours, myself included, and that formula worked until it didn't. And I think honestly, Starfield became their turning point. Sure, millions played it, some even loved it, but many walked away disappointed like me. But what really mattered wasn't those review scores, it was the opportunity cost of Starfield, right? Bethesda spent years making that game. Instead of prioritizing a new Fallout or Elder Scrolls, it was an enormous gamble, and when you're operating under that model that Bethesda is used to, every release, let's be real, they want everything to be a cultural phenomenon for them. Anything less than that creates difficult questions, especially for Microsoft. So one thing we've heard repeatedly from Xbox leadership over the past year is a greater emphasis on building a healthier release cadence and making sure that players have a more consistent flow of games across the whole platform. That doesn't necessarily mean rushing the projects, but it does suggest a shift away from waiting 8 to 10 years before another major release happens, and honestly, can't even blame them. Microsoft didn't spend nearly $70 billion acquiring Activision Blizzard or more billions billions getting Bethesda. They didn't invest in dozens of these studios just to release like one blockbuster every 5 years, maybe at the best, unless it's called Forza. And if Bethesda is working on Elder Scrolls 6, which is years away, then that puts the next Fallout even further out. Like, we're talking at least 10 years from now before a new Fallout game even maybe comes out. That's like 20 years between Fallout 4 and 5. That's insane. Nobody wants that. I do think in general, AAA development is crashing and it does have to reinvent itself. And personally, I don't have the highest hopes for an Obsidian-led Fallout game in this era, considering what they have been prioritizing in their games already. But at least I am willing to give some benefit of the doubt to at least see what they're going to do. Will it be good? I don't know yet. Obsidian might try to say they're the same, but their games are saying otherwise. So whether Obsidian ultimately develops the next Fallout or not, the conversation itself tells us something really important, okay? People no longer assume that Bethesda is the only studio capable of like carrying that franchise anymore. 10 years ago, that idea would have sounded absurd. But today, it's like one of the most common discussions in gaming that people are having for a reason, because it reflects this industry that keeps questioning whether this whole traditional AAA development thing that they're doing still works, and in my opinion, mostly it doesn't. Legacy alone can't solve the challenges facing AAA development today, alright? And eventually, every great studio has to prove that it can still adapt to the times, because the future won't be decided by who made the best RPG like 15 years ago. It's going to be decided by who can consistently deliver great games without asking us all to wait decades in between like Bethesda keeps doing. But what do you think? Let me know. Thanks for being here. Honestly, the way things are going, we're years away from seeing any real impact from these changes, but I'll stay hopeful. Let's just hope that Obsidian doesn't girl boss the new Fallout into the ground like they did their other games. Subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you guys next time.